Hey, seventh grade. Welcome back to another week of math online here. So I hope all is well and you had a good Easter and we're ready to get nice and rested up and ready to get back to work. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to do lesson 91 today. And lesson 91 is evaluations with positive and negative numbers. Okay, and evaluations just is basically meaning plug in the number they want you to use and then answer the question. And if that doesn't make sense, hopefully by doing the examples it'll make a little bit more sense here. We'll put them on the board right now. Okay, so I'm going to start with example 1, and it says evaluate, which remember that just means answer. Okay, and then it's a bunch of letters, x minus xy minus y, so it looks really goofy. I'll put that up on the board. X minus xy minus y. Okay, and then also it says, right after that it says, if x equals -2, so I'm going to write that up here. And y equals -3. So what that means is this, is you have to plug a -2 in every time you see the letter X. Don't change any of the signs. Don't change this sign. Don't change this sign. And remember the sign that's between these two when you have two letters next to each other, an X and a Y, or just two letters in general, that means multiply. Okay, so don't change anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug those numbers in. It also wants you to plug in a -3 for the letter Y. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, don't change anything else that you see here. And I like to do it. I like to put it in parentheses because to me it just makes it a little bit easier. I just put all the numbers in parentheses. So let's do that. So X, it wants us to write -2. So we are rewriting the equation so we can actually answer it. Okay, so I'm going to write -2. I'm going to put in parentheses like I said. Remember, don't mess with any of the other symbols. So I'm going to put a minus sign. And then I need to write -2 again. And I'm going to put it in parentheses. And then I also need to write -3 right next to it. Okay, so we still have to multiply those. I didn't change anything. And then at the very end, I'm going to write another minus sign. And then I'm going to put another -3 in like that. Okay? So that's what evaluate means. That's what it's telling you to do. It wants you to plug in the -2 and the -3. Now it just comes down to answering the question. And just like in PEMDAS, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'll write that up here. We've done that before plenty of times. Okay? You start with the parentheses. And I know there's a bunch of parentheses, but there's nothing inside the parentheses besides just a number. So you can't really solve anything inside those parentheses because there's only a number in there. I just put them in to distinguish the difference between the negative number and the subtraction sign. It makes it a lot easier to do that, in my opinion. There are no exponents. Remember, these two are treated as the same, but we do not have any division. But we do have one multiplication. So let's go ahead and do that one. You can see right here in the middle. So we are just going to do -2 times -3. Okay? That ends up just being a +6. Remember, when we have two negatives times each other, it turns into a positive. So I'm going to rewrite the entire problem, and I'm going to change these ones. And that's going to turn into a 6. And now everything that I have not used, I'm going to rewrite. I used the -2, I used the -3. I did not use anything else. So I'm going to write a minus sign, and I'm going to write -2, and I'm going to put it in parentheses. I'm going to bring my other minus sign, and I'm going to put my -3 in parentheses. So now, I don't have any more multiplication. I didn't have any division from the start with. Now I'm down to the last two, which I don't have any addition. The only thing left is I have subtraction. Okay, so now when you solve this, you go from left to right. So here we're going to start here. Okay, And when I do these, I like to say in terms of money. It just helps my brain think a little bit easier. I think it is. So this is whenever you have a negative number, I always think of that as like you owe someone something, right? I owe someone $2 right here, okay? And then now I'm losing or I'm owing someone $6 more, okay? Or -2 minus 6, as some people would say, but just a different way to look at it. That means I owe someone $8, -8. That's what that turns into. And I'm going to rewrite what I have not used. Okay? And then remember, when we have a minus followed by another negative, that turns that entire section into a plus. So it actually should be rewrote like this. -8 plus 3. Okay, and again, I like to say this in terms of money. To me, it makes it a lot easier. I hope it does for you as well. I owe someone $8, but someone gave me 3 to pay them. Okay, so how much more do I owe them? I still owe them only $5 more. Or I owe someone $8. I managed to get 3 more from the work I did, and I paid them. Now I only owe them $5, as you can see down here. So the answer to the example 1 is -5. Okay, you're just plugging the numbers in and solving the equations. I'll leave that up there so you can kind of see the order again for a second, and then I will erase it and we will go to example 2. Okay. Okay, example 2 can be very similar, a little bit different wording. It says, Nikki says the solution of the equation 3x plus 5 equals -1 is -2. So I'm going to write this up here. 3x plus 5 equals -1. And I'm just going to write this as a side note. Her name was Nikki, that's in the question. So Nikki says it equals -2. Notice there's no n. The n just stands for Nikki. Okay, because that's what the question told us. So this says, show how Nikki can check her answer. It wants you to do the same thing. It's just telling you to, hey, plug in that number to see, is that right, the -1? Let's find out. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to write 3. And then where I see the x, I'm going to plug in the -2 because that's what Nikki thinks it is. I'm going to put -2. And again, I put it in parentheses because we need to show that we're multiplying those two, just like it shows in the top. 3 times a number we don't know. And then I'm going to write a plus, and then I'm going to write a 5. And I'm not going to write equals -1. I'm going to see, we're going to find out if it equals -1. That's what we're checking, and that's what we're showing. Okay, so you always start, PEMDAS, order of operations again. And as we see, we have a plus here, but we have a multiplication here. And we know we need to do that one first. So I'm going to say 3 times 2 is 6, but it's actually 3 times -2, which we have 1 negative, and we know when we're using negatives in the math problem, we need to have 2 negatives or an even amount of negatives. You cannot just have 1. So our answer actually turns into -6. Okay? And then we haven't used this yet, so let's rewrite it. Plus 5. Okay? So now it's the same thing. Like I said, I like to use it as money. I owe someone $6, but now I worked, I got $5 more, and I'm going to pay them. How much left do I either still owe them, or do I have a surplus and I have more of it? And it turns out you would still owe them $1, or the answer is -1. Okay, and that is exactly what Nikki said. She said the answer would be -2, and that's how you would show that she is correct. -2 was correct, and that's what equals -1. So evaluations just means you're plugging answers in and rewriting the equation, which is very crucial. Make sure you're doing that, because otherwise it could be, it's super confusing sometimes with all the negatives and which part you should do first. But if you rewrite it, it makes it way clearer and easier to see, and hopefully in turn then we get the right answer. So that's about it for this one. So thank you for listening, and hope you're having a good day, and take care.